Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day to everyone. Today, I'll be presenting on the role of emotional intelligence and parental stress in psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. This presentation was prepared by Dr. Nelly binti Ismail and me myself, Shivanisa binti Shahrun. The first part of this presentation is the introduction. To begin, let me explain the background of this study. The key concept of psychosocial adjustment refers to how individuals achieve a sense of balance, satisfaction and well-being across emotional, social, cognitive and behavioral areas. Among children, psychosocial adjustment often relates to the family and school settings. Next, an important factor influencing psychosocial adjustment is emotional intelligence. According to Survey and Mayer in 1990, emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and monitor one's own feeling as well as the others' feelings, and then use that information to guide thinking and behavior. Research has shown that children with higher emotional intelligence tend to demonstrate better psychosocial adjustment, as reported by PCARES in 2019. Finally, another crucial factor is parental stress. This refers to the stress parents experience in carrying out their parenting responsibilities. When parents report high levels of stress on parenting assessment, their children are more likely to show lower level of psychosocial adjustment. Next is problem statement. Why is this topic important? So, research has shown that poor psychosocial adjustment among children can lead to aggressive behavior such as bullying. In fact, Malaysia has reported a worrying increased number in bullying cases, from 3,887 in 2022 to 4,994 in 2023 and 7,681 in 2024. Moreover, children with poor adjustment also face higher risk of loneliness, depressions, and social isolation. Low emotional intelligence can make it even more difficult for them to adapt to their peers and surrounding. Parental stress further contributes to the problems. When children sense and internalize their parents' stress, it can damage their self-esteem and reduce their willingness to socialize. Unfortunately, most studies on this issue focus on adolescents or adults, leaving primary school children less explored. Research question, objectives, and hypotheses. The general objective of this study is to determine the relationship between emotional intelligence, parental stress, and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The first research questions: what are the children's and parents' background? The first research objective is to describe children's background, age and sex, parents' background, family monthly income, emotional intelligence, parental stress, and psychosocial adjustment. The second research question: is there any relationship between children's background, age, parents' background, family monthly income, and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children? The second research objective is to determine the relationship between children's background, age, parents' background, family monthly income, and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The first research hypothesis is that there is no significant relationship between age and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The second hypothesis: there is no significant relationship between family monthly income and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. Moving on to the third research question: is there any relationship between emotional intelligence, parental stress, and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children? The third research objective is to determine the relationship between emotional intelligence, parental stress, and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The third hypothesis: there is no significant relationship between emotional intelligence and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The fourth hypothesis: there is no significant relationship between parental stress and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The fourth research question: is there any difference in psychosocial adjustment between males and females? The fourth research objective is to determine the difference in psychosocial adjustment between males and females. The fifth research hypothesis: there is no significant difference in psychosocial adjustment between males and females. So this figure is showing the conceptual framework on the role of emotional intelligence and parental stress in psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The antecedent variable in the study consists of children's background, sex and age, and parents' background, family monthly income. Independent variables consist of emotional intelligence and parental stress, and dependent variable consists of psychosocial adjustment. The next part of this presentation is the literature review. Firstly, review of relationship between antecedent variable, children's background, and dependent variable, psychosocial adjustment. Psychosocial adjustment is not fixed but tend to improve as children grow older and gain life experience. This was highlighted by Charles and Catterson in 2010, who explained that age played a role in building coping skills. However, the findings on gender difference are mixed. Chirigiza and colleagues in 2012 has reported that girls were more likely to experience psychosocial adjustment problems compared to boys. In contrast, Das and Sarma in 2022 found no significant difference between sex. On the other hand, Gautam and Podel 2016 indicated that male children had significantly low adjustment, while Kizas 2018 reported that girls had lower adjustment. These contrasting findings show that the influence of gender is still debatable. Next, review of relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. The first review is on the emotional intelligence and psychosocial adjustment. When it comes to emotional intelligence, the evidence is stronger. Desborough and colleagues in 2022 identified emotional intelligence as a significant factor influencing children's adjustment. Similarly, Rivers and colleagues in 2012 found that children with higher emotional intelligence reported better psychosocial adjustment. Supporting this, Sanchez and colleagues in 2022 showed that such children also develop more positive relationship with peers and family members. Next, we will focus on the review on the relationship between parental stress and psychosocial adjustment. Parental stress has also been strongly linked to children's adjustment. Kusinaya and colleagues in 2022 described parental stress as a predictor of psychosocial well-being, while Wang and colleagues 2023 found that higher parental stress was associated with lower adjustment in children. Earlier in 2002, Hastings had early established this link, showing that stress in parents contribute to more behavioral problems and reduce social competency among children. The next part is methodology. In this study, we applied a correlational cross-sectional design. We distributed two sets of surveys, an online survey for parents and a printed questionnaire for children. The study was carried out in two primary schools in Alusta district, involving Standard 5 and Standard 6 children. Out of 660 students, we selected 322 using multi-stage cluster random sampling technique. For this study, 3 standardized instruments were used to collect data, each focusing on one of the main variables. To measure psychosocial adjustment, we used the Strength and Difficulties Questionnaire or SDQ, developed by Goodman in 1997. This tool consists of 25 items rated on 3-point scale: not true, somewhat true, and certainly true. In our actual study, the reliability was 0.855, which show a strong consistency. Second, for emotional intelligence, we applied the Trait Emotional Intelligence Questionnaire, Child Short Form. It was developed by Perezzo and colleagues in 2020. This questionnaire contains of 36 items rated on a 5-point Likert scale, ranging from completely disagree to completely agree. In our actual study, the reliability value was 0.633, which is acceptable for psychological research involving children. Finally, to measure parental stress, we used the Parental Stress Scale developed by Berry and Jones in 1995. It has 18 items, also rated on a 5-point Likert scale, from strongly disagree to strongly agree. The scale demonstrated very high reliability in our study with a score of 0.953. By combining these 3 instruments, we were able to capture children's psychosocial adjustment, their level of emotional intelligence, and the stress experienced by their parents in a reliable and valid way. Moving on to the next part, which is result and discussion. In terms of children backgrounds, out of 322 respondents, about half were 11 years old and the other half were 12 years old. Slightly more than half of the sample were girls, and while the rest were boys. For the parents' background, the majority came from M40 income group, followed by the B40, and a small percentage from the T20 group. Next is the description of emotional intelligence, parental stress, and psychosocial adjustment. For emotional intelligence, the mean score was 112.07. About 59% of the children scored higher, while 41 others were in the lower range. For parental stress, the mean was 48.08. Around 55% of parents reported low stress, while 45 others had higher level of stress. For psychosocial adjustment, the mean was 48.01. About 55% of the children showed high psychosocial adjustment, and 45% others showed lower psychosocial adjustment. Bivariate analysis based on correlation. The first hypothesis was there is no significant relationship between age and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The correlation value was 0.068 with a p-value of 0.224. Since the p-value is greater than 0.05, this result is not statistically significant. In other words, there was no meaningful relationship between a children's age and their psychosocial adjustment. This is slightly different from what Aslan and Allen reported, where older children showed higher adjustment, but in our study, that relationship was not observed. The second hypothesis is that there is no significant relationship between family monthly income and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The correlation was 0.038 with a p-value of 0.548. Again, the p-value is above 0.05, so the hypothesis cannot be rejected. This means income level was not significantly related to adjustment. This contrasts with Loft and Wolfegel in 2020, who found that children from higher income families reported better adjustment. The third hypothesis, there is no significant relationship between emotional intelligence and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. Here, the correlation was 0.607 with a p-value of 0.041. Since the p-value is below 0.05, this result is statistically significant. This means higher emotional intelligence is strongly associated with better psychosocial judgment. This supports the finding of PCARES in 2019 and others who emphasize the importance of emotional intelligence in children development. Moving on to the fourth hypothesis, there is no significant relationship between parental stress and psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. The correlation was negative 0.021 with a p-value of 0.712. This value is not significant, meaning parental stress did not show a direct relationship with children's psychosocial adjustment in the study. However, earlier research by Leo in 2015 suggested otherwise, showing that higher parental stress could reduce adjustment level. Lastly, there is no significant difference in psychosocial adjustment between males and females. The independent t-test result was t equal to 1.213 with a p-value of 0.536. Since the p-value is greater than 0.05, there was no significant difference in psychosocial adjustment between boys and girls. This finding is consistent with Klizas and colleagues in 2018 who also found no major gender bias differences. Moving on to the last part of this presentation, conclusion, implication, and recommendation. To conclude, only emotional intelligence was found to have a significant relationship with psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. Meanwhile, age, family income, parental stress, and gender differences were not significantly related in the study. This shows that emotional intelligence plays a central role in how children adjust socially, emotionally, and behaviorally, while other background factors may have less direct influence. The finding of this study carries several important implications and recommendations. For the implication, firstly, this study highlights the need to create awareness among parents and educators about the importance of emotional intelligence and psychosocial adjustment. Building this awareness can help both family and school play a stronger role in supporting children's development. Secondly, it emphasized the importance of equipping children with emotional intelligence skills. By strengthening this skill early, we can prevent low psychosocial adjustment and reduce issues such as isolation, low self-esteem, or difficulties in socializing among primary school children. And finally, this research can serve as a reference for future studies that focus on psychosocial adjustment in primary school children. Moving on to the recommendations, future research should be expanded to cover more geographical locations across Malaysia. This will provide a broader picture of children's adjustment in different contexts. It is also recommended to include a wider range of age in future sample, so we can understand how adjustment develop across childhood. And lastly, future studies may consider adding more independent variable which can help to capture other factors influencing children's psychosocial adjustment. So that concludes my presentation on the role of emotional intelligence and parental stress in psychosocial adjustment among primary school children. Thank you very much for your attention. I am Shifanisa binti Shahrun, and should you have any further questions, you may reach me at shifanisasha@gmail.com.